The notification glowed on my phone screen like a golden ticket. Henrik Rene's exclusive rooftop party. You're invited. My heart hammered against my ribs because this was it. The chance I'd been waiting for since freshman year. Henrik Rene. The name alone made my stomach flip. Rich, charming, effortlessly cool, and completely out of my league. But maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. Maybe he'd finally see me as more than just another face in the crowd. I stood in front of my closet mirror, adjusting my thrift store blazer for the 100th time. I wasn't designer, but it was the best I had. Working part-time at a campus cafe while juggling a full scholarship didn't leave much room for a fashion budget. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. Confidence was key, right? I grabbed my phone, keys, and whatever courage I could scrape together, then headed out into the night. The rooftop venue was everything I'd imagined and worse. String lights draped across the space like fallen stars, casting a warm glow over clusters of people who looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Designer suits, expensive watches, laughter that sounded rehearsed and perfect. I felt the weight of my inadequacy settle on my shoulders the moment I stepped through the entrance. Everyone here belonged. Everyone except me. I spotted Henrik near the center of the crowd, surrounded by his usual entourage. He wore a cream-colored blazer that probably cost more than my entire semester's tuition, and his perfectly styled hair caught the light just right. God, he was beautiful. I forced my feet to move, weaving through conversations I wasn't part of, until I stood at the edge of his circle. Henrik glanced my way, and for a split second, I thought I saw recognition. He smiled. "Oh, you made it," he said, his tone casual, almost dismissive, as if I were just another name on a long guest list he barely remembered adding. Not the warm welcome I'd hoped for, but at least he acknowledged me. I returned what I hoped was a confident smile and grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter's tray, just to have something to do with my hands. The bubbles fizzed against my lips, bitter and expensive. I wasn't used to champagne. I wasn't used to any of this. I turned to scan the room, trying to find a comfortable corner where I could observe without looking completely lost. That's when it happened. Someone, I still don't know if it was deliberate or accidental, bumped into me from behind. The champagne glass slipped from my fingers, and I stumbled forward, my shoes losing traction on the polished floor. Everything shifted into slow motion. My arms flailed uselessly as I crashed toward an elaborate ice sculpture shaped like a swan. The glass shattered. The sculpture wobbled dangerously, and I landed in a heap of humiliation and broken crystal. The music didn't stop, but it might as well have. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. All eyes locked on me, sprawled on the ground like a disaster waiting to be photographed. And then I heard it. Laughter. Henrik's laughter. Not a polite chuckle or an embarrassed sound, but genuine amusement. He actually pulled out his phone, angling it toward me as if this moment was too good not to capture. "Dude, this is definitely going on Instagram," one of his friends said, and they all laughed harder. Heat flooded my face. Shame, pain, mortification all colliding at once. My palms stung where they'd scraped against broken glass. Tiny cuts welling with blood. I tried to push myself up, but my hands shook too badly. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes, and I blinked rapidly, desperate not to cry in front of these people. Not in front of him. Then, through the haze of embarrassment, someone grabbed my wrist. The grip was firm, almost possessive, and when I looked up, I found myself staring into the darkest, most intense eyes I'd ever seen. Stefan Cole. Henrik's bodyguard. I'd noticed him before. Of course, impossible not to. He was always there, a silent shadow lingering at the edges of every event, never speaking, never smiling, just watching. But now he wasn't watching anymore. He was acting. His jaw was tight, muscles flexing beneath his black suit as his gaze cut toward Henrik with something that looked dangerously close to fury. Then, without a word, without asking permission, Stefan bent down and scooped me into his arms. Bridal style, I gasped, my hands instinctively clutching his shoulders for balance. His hold was solid, secure, like he was carrying something precious instead of a humiliated mess of a person. "Stefan, what are you?" Henrik started, his smile faltering for the first time that night. But Stefan didn't respond. He didn't even glance back. He just turned on his heel and strode toward the exit with me cradled against his chest. Whispers erupted around us. Phones lifted, but Stefan's expression remained carved from stone, unreadable and unyielding. His grip never loosened, never wavered, as if he was determined to shield me from every judgmental stare. The cool night air hit my face like a slap of reality. When we stepped outside, Stefan carried me down the stairs and across the parking lot to a sleek black car parked in the shadows. Only then did he set me down, gently, carefully, as if I might shatter further. He opened the passenger door and guided me to sit, then moved to the trunk and returned with a first aid kit. "Let me see your hands," he said, his voice low and rough, like gravel underfoot. I hesitated before extending my palms toward him, blood still seeping from the shallow cuts. Stefan knelt in front of me, actually knelt, and began cleaning the wounds with an antiseptic wipe. His touch was so gentle it made my chest ache. This man, who looked like he could break someone in half without blinking, was treating me like I was made of glass. "Why did you go to that party?" he asked without looking up, his focus entirely on bandaging my left hand. I swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. The truth felt too pathetic to say out loud. But something about Stefan's steady presence made honesty feel safer than lies. "I wanted to impress Henrik," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Stefan's hands stilled mid-rap. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted his gaze to meet mine. And for the first time I saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Anger, maybe, or disappointment. But not directed at me. "You're trying to impress the wrong person," he said simply, his words heavy with meaning. I didn't fully understand. Then he finished wrapping my hand, secured the bandage with careful precision, and stood. He didn't offer comfort or reassurance, didn't tell me everything would be okay. He just closed the first aid kit, climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. And somehow, in that silence, I felt safer than I had all night. Morning light filtered through my apartment blinds when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I groaned, rolling over to grab it, expecting a notification from my class group chat, or maybe a shift reminder from the cafe. Instead, an unknown number glowed on the screen. The message was short. "Are your hands okay?" My breath caught. "Stefan." I sat up too quickly, my bandaged palms protesting the sudden movement. How did he get my number? And why was he checking on me? My fingers hovered over the keyboard as I debated how to respond. Play it cool? Be honest? After 3 deleted drafts, I settled on, "Yeah, they're fine. Thanks for asking. But how did you get my number?" The reply came within seconds, as if he'd been waiting. From Henrik's phone. "Sorry for invading your privacy. Should I delete it?" My heart did something strange in my chest, a flutter that felt both terrifying and thrilling. I typed back quickly, "No. I mean, it's fine. It was nice of you to check on me." The read receipt appeared immediately, but no response followed. Minutes stretched into an hour. Maybe I'd said something wrong. Maybe he regretted reaching out. 2 days passed in uncomfortable silence. I threw myself into my routine. Morning classes, afternoon shifts at the library where I worked part-time shelving books, evening study sessions that stretched past midnight. But every time my phone buzzed, my pulse spiked, hoping it might be Stefan again. It never was. Until Thursday afternoon. I was in the library's history section, arms full of returned textbooks, when I sensed someone behind me. I turned and nearly dropped every book in my hands. Stefan stood 3 feet away, dressed in his usual black suit, hands clasped in front of him in that bodyguard stance I'd seen 100 times at Henrik's events. But this time, he wasn't working. This time, he was here. For me. "How did you know I'd be here?" I asked, my voice coming out shakier than I intended. Stefan's expression didn't change, but I caught the slightest hint of something in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. "Asked the campus security office. Told them I needed to return something you dropped at the party." He held up a small pharmacy bag and I blinked in confusion. "Your hands. The antibiotic cream probably ran out. This should help with healing." I stared at the bag like it was a foreign object. This man, this silent, stoic bodyguard who barely spoke to anyone, had tracked me down to bring me medicine. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. "You didn't have to do that." I said, setting the books down on a nearby cart because my hands were trembling now. And not from the weight. I did, Stefan replied, his tone leaving no room for arguments. Then he stepped closer, much closer, until I could smell that clean, earthy scent that clung to him, like rain-soaked wood and something darker, more grounding. Nobody takes care of you, so my breath hitched. The words hung between us, heavy with implication I wasn't ready to unpack. You barely know me, I whispered, my back pressing against the bookshelf behind me. Stefan's lips curved into the smallest, saddest smile I'd ever seen. I've been watching you since December, he said, and my heart stopped. December? That was months ago. I saw you crying in this library late one night when you thought no one was around. Saw Henrik ignore you at 3 separate parties while you kept trying to get his attention. Saw you skip lunch because your scholarship deposit was late and you couldn't afford to eat. Tears stung my eyes. How had I not noticed? How had someone seen all of that, all my most vulnerable, pathetic moments, without me realizing? Why? The question came out broken, desperate. Why were you watching? Stefan's hand lifted, and for a moment I thought he might touch my face. Instead, he braced his palm against the shelf beside my head, caging me in without trapping me. Because you're the only real person in Henrik's world. Everyone else is fake, playing games, chasing money or status. But you're just trying to survive while being kind. That's rare. That's worth protecting. My chest felt too tight, emotions swirling too fast to name. Before I could stop myself, I asked, what about Henrik? If he finds out, Henrik won't know. Stefan cut me off, his voice harder now, edged with something protective. He's too busy posting stories and chasing validation to notice what's happening right in front of him. He already forgot about you, Daniel. But I won't. Hearing my name on his lips, Daniel, spoken with such careful deliberation, made something inside me crack open. Nobody said my name like that, like it mattered, like I mattered. My phone vibrated in my pocket, shattering the moment. I fumbled for it, and Henrik's name flashed across the screen with a new message. Party tomorrow night. Come through. Need people there, lol. I showed Stefan the screen and his expression darkened immediately. Jaw tightening in that way I was starting to recognize as barely controlled anger. Don't go, he said flatly. I want to try one more time. I admitted, hating how desperate I sounded even to my own ears. Maybe if I just... He'll hurt you again. Stefan's hand moved from the shelf to my wrist, fingers circling the bandage he'd applied days ago. His thumb pressed against my pulse point, feeling the frantic beat beneath my skin. And if you go, I'll be there. I'll protect you. Even if it costs me everything. Then he did something that stopped my world entirely. He lifted my wrist to his mouth and pressed a soft, lingering kiss right where my pulse hammered wildly. The gesture was possessive, tender, and completely devastating. When he pulled back, his dark eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. I'll keep you safe, Daniel. No matter what. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow. And standing there in the dusty quiet of the library, surrounded by forgotten books and untold stories, I realized something terrifying. I was falling for the wrong person all over again, except this time it didn't feel wrong at all. That night, alone in my tiny apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about what Stefan had said. The way he'd looked at me, touched me, spoken my name like a prayer. Sleep came in restless waves. And when morning finally arrived, I found myself at the cafe for my opening shift, moving through the motions on autopilot. Brew coffee, take orders, smile at customers, repeat. But my mind was miles away. Stefan appeared just after the morning rush died down. He wore his standard black suit, but something about him seemed different, softer around the edges, less like armor and more like a person. He approached the counter with that same quiet intensity, eyes finding mine immediately. Did you respond to Henrik? No greeting, no small talk. Straight to the point, as always. I sighed, wiping down the espresso machine to avoid his gaze. Yes. I said I'd go, but Stefan, before you, I'm coming with you. His tone left no room for negotiation. I looked up sharply, surprised. You can't. Henrik didn't invite you, and showing up as his bodyguard when you're off duty would be weird. Then I'm going as your guest. Stefan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. expression unreadable. Daniel, you don't understand what Henrik does to people. He's not physically dangerous, but emotionally? He destroys them for entertainment. I've watched it happen too many times. I won't let him do it to you. The genuine concern in his voice made my defenses crumble. This wasn't about possession or control. This was about someone actually caring whether I got hurt. When was the last time anyone had cared like that? Okay, I said quietly. You can come. But as a guest, not as a bodyguard. Deal? Stefan considered this for a moment, then nodded once. Deal. As he spoke, I noticed his hand resting on the counter near mine. Our fingers were so close, just inches apart. Heart pounding, I shifted slightly, letting my pinky brush against his. The contact was barely there, fleeting as breath, but Stefan's reaction was immediate. His entire body tensed, and when I glanced up, his eyes were locked on my face with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hunger, maybe, or longing. Daniel, he started, voice lower than usual, rougher, but then my manager called from the back, breaking the spell. Stefan straightened, cleared his throat, and ordered a black coffee. No sugar, no cream, nothing to soften the bitterness. Typical. Before leaving, he slid a folded napkin across the counter. I waited until he was gone before opening it. The note read, tomorrow. 8 o'clock. I'll pick you up. Don't worry about what to wear. You'll look perfect in anything. My face burned. Was this a date? Were we going to Henrik's party together, like what? A couple? Friends? Something undefined and terrifying? I folded the note carefully and tucked it into my apron pocket, replaying the moment over and over until my shift ended. The next evening, I stood in front of my closet, feeling like a teenager preparing for prom. I settled on dark jeans and my best button-down shirt. Nothing fancy but clean and presentable. When Stefan knocked at 8 sharp, I opened the door to find him transformed. No suit tonight, just a simple black Henley and dark jeans that somehow made him look more intimidating and more approachable at the same time. Human. You look good, he said simply, and I tried not to read too much into the way his gaze lingered. We drove in comfortable silence until we hit the highway, city lights blurring past the windows. Then Stefan suddenly pulled over onto the shoulder, threw the car into park and turned to face me fully. Listen to me carefully, he said, reaching out to cup my face with both hands. The unexpected touch made my breath stutter. You are better than them. Smarter, kinder, more genuine than anyone at that party will ever be. If Henrik or anyone else says something that hurts you, tell me immediately. I'll handle it. Stefan, you could lose your job if you cause a scene. I don't care about the job. His voice was fierce now, almost angry. You're more important than any paycheck, any client, any reputation I might have. Do you understand? I nodded wordlessly, overwhelmed by the intensity of his conviction. Then Stefan did something that changed everything. He leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead, a soft, protective kiss that lingered long enough for me to memorize the feeling. When he pulled back, his eyes searched mine. I mean it, Daniel. You matter more than anything else. The party was on Henrik's father's yacht, because of course it was. Nothing but the best for Henrik Rene. We boarded together and I immediately felt the shift in atmosphere. This wasn't a rooftop gathering with string lights and champagne. This was excess on display, 3 levels of polished wood and chrome, a full bar, a DJ spinning electronic music that vibrated through the deck. Henrik spotted us within minutes, his expression flickering from surprise to amusement when he saw Stefan beside me. Stefan, I didn't expect to see you here off duty. Oh. His gaze shifted to me, then back to Stefan, and a slow smirk spread across his face. Interesting. Very interesting. Daniel invited me, Stefan said evenly, his hand finding the small of my back in a gesture that was both casual and unmistakably possessive. Henrik's friends noticed, exchanging glances and whispers. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like I was standing under a spotlight wearing nothing but my insecurities. Well, make yourselves at home, Henrik said with false cheerfulness. Drinks are at the bar. Try not to fall this time, yeah, Daniel? His friends laughed, and I felt my face flush with renewed embarrassment. Stefan's hand pressed more firmly against my back, steadying me, reminding me he was there. We moved through the party like ghosts at a feast we weren't meant to attend. I grabbed a soda from the bar while Stefan stayed close, his presence a constant shield. But as the night wore on, Henrik's attention kept drifting back to us, watching, calculating. Finally, when Stefan stepped away to get me water, Henrik swooped in. "So, you and my bodyguard, huh?" He leaned against the railing beside me, close enough that I could smell alcohol on his breath. "That's bold, Daniel. Really bold." "We're friends," I said carefully, not wanting to give him ammunition. Henrik laughed, sharp and mocking. "Stefan doesn't have friends. He has orders and paychecks. If he's paying attention to you, trust me, it's not real. It's pity." The words struck like physical blows, doubt creeping in despite my better judgment. Was Henrik right? Was Stefan just being kind because he felt sorry for me? "You're wrong," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Henrik's smile widened. "Am I? Ask yourself this. Why would someone like him want someone like you?" Before I could respond, Stefan reappeared, water bottle in hand. His eyes went from my pale face to Henrik's smug expression, and something dangerous flashed across his features. "What did you say to him?" Stefan's voice was quiet, but it carried a threat that made even Henrik step back slightly. "Just the truth, man. Relax." Stefan handed me the water, then stepped between Henrik and me, his body language shifting into something protective and lethal. "Stay away from him. That's not a request." Henrik raised his hands in mock surrender, still smiling. "Whatever you say, Stefan. Just don't forget who signs your paychecks." Then he walked away, leaving us standing there in tense silence. Stefan turned to me, concern replacing anger. "What did he say?" he asked gently. I shook my head, unable to repeat Henrik's poisonous words. Instead, I grabbed Stefan's hand, the first time I'd initiated contact, and held on tight, needing something real to anchor me in this sea of superficiality. "Can we leave?" I asked quietly. Stefan nodded immediately, threading his fingers through mine. "Let's go home." We didn't leave immediately. Stefan suggested we walk along the marina first, away from the yacht's pulsing music and judgmental eyes. The night air was cool against my flushed skin, and the sound of water lapping against the docks helped calm my racing thoughts. We walked in silence for a while, hands still intertwined, until we reached a bench overlooking the dark expanse of ocean. "I need to tell you something," Stefan said as we sat down, his voice carrying a weight I hadn't heard before. Henrik wasn't entirely wrong back there, about my past. My stomach stankened, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to let him speak. "I did serve in the military, special operations, the kind of work they don't talk about in recruitment videos." He stared out at the water, jaw working as he gathered his words. "I was 18 when I enlisted. My father was violent, unpredictable. I needed to escape, needed structure, discipline, something that made sense. The military gave me that, but it also turned me into something I didn't recognize." His hand tightened around mine and I squeezed back, offering silent support. "They trained us to be efficient, emotionless, to complete missions without questioning orders. And I was good at it. Too good." His voice cracked slightly. "I did things, Daniel. Things that kept me awake at night for years afterward. I hurt people because I was told to, because it was my job, because I didn't know how to be anything else." My heart ached for him, for the pain etched into every word. "How long ago was this?" I asked softly. "I left 5 years ago, got an honorable discharge after my last tour, but I was broken inside. Couldn't sleep without nightmares. Couldn't connect with people because I'd forgotten how to be human." He turned to look at me, and in the moonlight I could see moisture gathering in his eyes. Becoming a bodyguard seemed like a logical transition. Same skills, different application, but it was still just existing, going through motions, until I saw you. What changed? I needed to understand, needed to know why me of all people. "You smiled at me," Stefan said simply. "Last December at that campus fundraiser Henrik dragged me to. I was holding the door and you were leaving with an armful of books that were clearly too heavy. You stopped, smiled at me like I was a person worth noticing, and said thank you with such genuine warmth that it shocked me. Nobody looks at bodyguards like that. We're furniture, invisible. But you saw me." Tears pricked my eyes. I remembered that night I'd been stressed about finals, exhausted from work, But I always tried to acknowledge people doing small kindnesses. I never imagined it had meant something. After that I started noticing you everywhere, Stefan continued. At first I told myself it was just curiosity. But then I saw how Henrik treated you, how he'd let you hover around him, give you just enough attention to keep you hoping, then ignore you completely. It made me angry in ways I couldn't explain. You deserved so much better. Why didn't you say something sooner? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because I was terrified, Stefan admitted, vulnerability stark in his expression. Terrified that if you knew what I'd done, who I'd been, you'd look at me the way everyone else does when they learn the truth. Like I'm dangerous. Like I'm a monster. Henrik knew that fear and he weaponized it tonight. I shifted closer, closing the distance between us on the bench. You're not a monster, Stefan. You were a kid who had no good options, who did what he had to survive. That doesn't define who you are now. How can you be sure? His voice was barely a whisper. How can you trust someone with blood on their hands? Because trust isn't about your past. I said firmly, it's about your choices now. And every choice you've made since meeting me has been protective, kind, and honest. Except for hiding this. But I understand why you did. I reached up to cup his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. I'm not scared of you, Stefan. I'm scared of losing you. His breath hitched, and then suddenly his lips were on mine. Not the gentle forehead kiss from before. This was desperate, urgent, like he was drowning and I was air. I kissed him back with equal fervor, pouring all my confused feelings into it, fear and desire and hope and certainty all tangled together. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Stefan pressed his forehead against mine. Henrik fired me tonight, he said quietly. Right before the party. He saw security footage from the library, saw me bringing you medicine, saw the way I looked at you, told me I was compromising my professional integrity, that I was getting too attached to someone in his social circle. Shock rippled through me. Stefan, your job, you need that income. I need you more, he interrupted fiercely. I'll find other work. There are plenty of security firms hiring, or I can start my own consulting business. But walking away from you, that's not an option I'm willing to consider. His thumb traced my cheekbone with heartbreaking tenderness. You're the first person who's made me feel alive in 5 years, Daniel. The first person who's made me want to be better, to heal, to actually live instead of just survive. I won't give that up. I won't give you up. My vision blurred with tears. Nobody had ever chosen me like this, had ever prioritized me over stability, reputation, or the easier path. What about Henrik? He won't just let this go. You know how he is. Stefan's expression hardened. I have insurance, documentation from my time as his bodyguard, photos, videos, recordings of conversations. Nothing illegal on my part, just evidence of activities Henrik wouldn't want public. Tax irregularities, substances at private parties, deals that skirt legal boundaries. I never planned to use it, kept it purely as protection in case he ever tried to retaliate against me. The revelation made me uncomfortable. That sounds like blackmail. It's leverage, Stefan corrected, and I'll only use it if Henrik tries to hurt you or destroy my reputation so thoroughly I can't find work. I don't want to threaten him. I just want him to leave us alone. There's a difference. He searched my face, gauging my reaction. Does that change how you see me? I thought about it carefully. The morality was murky, but Stefan's intentions were protective, not malicious. Just promise me you'll only use it as a last resort. I don't want you becoming the kind of person you're trying to leave behind. I promise, Stefan said solemnly. Then, softer, thank you for not running, for giving me a chance to explain, for seeing past the worst parts of me. I see all of you, I told him, meaning every word, and what I see is someone worth keeping. We sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the Vaughn's reflection dance on the dark water. The night had started as a disaster, but somehow, impossibly, it had led us here to honesty, to understanding, to the beginning of something real. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The following weeks unfolded in unexpected ways. Stefan immediately began job hunting, reaching out to contacts from his military days who'd transitioned into private security. Within a week, he had 3 interviews lined up. Meanwhile, Henrik's silence was deafening. No threatening texts, No attempts to sabotage Stefan's job prospects. No social media posts mocking me. It was almost eerie. Maybe he's actually leaving us alone. I suggested one evening as Stefan and I sat in his apartment. My textbook spread across his coffee table while he reviewed business proposals on his laptop. His apartment was surprisingly cozy, minimalist in decoration but warm in atmosphere, with large windows overlooking the city and walls adorned with paintings I'd later learn he'd created himself. Maybe, Stefan said, though his tone suggested skepticism. Or maybe he's planning something bigger. Henrik doesn't accept defeat gracefully. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone buzzed with a message. Henrik's name flashed on the screen and my stomach dropped. Stefan noticed my reaction immediately, setting his laptop aside. "What is it?" he asked, moving closer. I showed him the message. "I owe you both an apology. Can we meet? Just coffee. Public place. Your choice of location. I understand if you say no, but I'm asking anyway." Stefan's jaw tightened, but he didn't immediately object. "What do you want to do?" The question surprised me. I'd expected him to veto the idea outright. "You'd let me decide?" "It's not about letting you," Stefan said carefully. "You're not mine to control, Daniel. You're your own person with your own choices. I'll support whatever you decide, even if I personally think Henrik is up to something." He paused, considering. "Though if you do want to meet him, I'm coming with you." After much deliberation, I responded, "Fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the coffee shop near campus. Stefan will be there too." Henrik's reply came quickly. "Fair enough. See you then." The next afternoon, we arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, claiming a corner table with clear sightlines to all exits. Stefan's tactical thinking at work. When Henrik walked in at exactly 2 o'clock, I barely recognized him. Gone was the polished, arrogant persona I'd known for months. This Henrik looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothing that suggested he'd stopped caring about appearances. He approached our table hesitantly, as if expecting us to bolt. "Thanks for coming," he said, remaining standing until Stefan gave a curt nod toward the empty chair. Henrik sat, ordering nothing, his hands clasped tightly on the table. "I've been in therapy," he began without preamble, 3 times a week since the yacht party. My parents insisted after I had a breakdown and trashed my apartment. The confession hung in the air. Stefan remained impassive, but I found myself leaning forward slightly, curiosity overcoming caution. "What kind of breakdown?" I asked. Henrik's laugh was bitter. "The kind where you realize you're a terrible person and have no idea how you got that way." I called my therapist at 2 in the morning, sobbing about how empty everything felt, how all my relationships were transactional, how I hurt people for entertainment because I didn't know how else to feel powerful. He finally met my eyes. "I hurt you deliberately, Daniel. Multiple times, and I'm genuinely sorry." "Why?" The question came from Stefan, his voice cold. "Why target Daniel specifically?" "Because he represented everything I'm not," Henrik said simply. "He's authentic. He works hard for what he has. He treats people with kindness even when they don't deserve it. And when I saw that, instead of admiring it, I wanted to destroy it." My therapist says it's because I was jealous that I couldn't stand seeing someone be genuinely good when I felt so hollow inside. The honesty was startling. This wasn't the Henrik I knew, the one who hid behind charm and cruelty. "What do you want from us?" I asked warily. "Nothing," Henrik said, and he sounded sincere. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect us to be friends. I just needed to say this to your face. I'm sorry for humiliating you at my party. I'm sorry for trying to sabotage your relationship with Stefan by exposing his past maliciously instead of letting him tell you in his own time. I'm sorry for being the kind of person who found joy in other people's pain." He turned to Stefan. "And I'm sorry for firing you out of spite. You were the best security I ever had, and you deserved better treatment." Stefan's expression remained unreadable, but I felt his hand find mine under the table, squeezing gently. "Your apology is noted," Stefan said flatly, "but words don't erase actions. You made Daniel doubt himself, doubt us. That's not something I can forgive easily." "I don't expect easy," Henrik replied. "I'm just trying to do the right thing, which is apparently something I need to relearn from scratch." He stood then, pulling out his wallet and leaving 2 20s on the table. "Coffee's on me." And Daniel? For what it's worth, Stefan's lucky to have you. I was too stupid to see it when I had the chance. After Henrik left, Stefan and I sat in stunned silence. Did that just happen? I finally asked. Apparently, Stefan said, still processing. I've known Henrik for 2 years, and that's the most human I've ever seen him. He studied my face. How do you feel about it? I thought carefully before answering. I don't forgive him yet. Maybe I never will completely, but I appreciate him trying. And honestly, it makes me feel better about moving forward with you, knowing he's not going to actively sabotage us. Stefan's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. You're more generous than he deserves. Maybe, I acknowledged. But holding on to anger would only hurt me. He's dealing with his issues. I'd rather focus on us. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Speaking of which, how did the interview with that security firm go yesterday? Stefan's expression shifted to something more optimistic. Actually, I have news about that. They offered me a position, but after thinking it over, I turned it down. My eyebrows shot up. Why? I thought you needed the income. I'm starting my own company instead. Stefan interrupted, a rare excitement coloring his voice. Private security consulting, specializing in personal protection and risk assessment. I've got enough savings to cover startup costs, and I already have 3 potential clients from my military network. It's a risk, but it means I answer to myself. Nobody can fire me for caring about someone. Nobody can control who I spend time with. Pride swelled in my chest. Stefan, that's incredible. How can I help? You already are, he said, squeezing my hand. You make me believe I can be more than what I was. That's worth more than any business plan. 3 months later, Stefan's security consulting business was thriving beyond either of our expectations. He'd rented a small office downtown, hired 2 employees, both veterans like himself, and had a steady stream of clients seeking discreet professional protection services. I'd become his unofficial consultant, helping with marketing strategies and client communications between my classes and cafe shifts. One Saturday evening, Stefan invited me to his apartment for dinner. He'd been acting strange all week, distracted, secretive, occasionally caught staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. When I arrived, I found the space transformed. Candles flickered on every surface. Soft music played from hidden speakers, and the small dining table was set with actual china instead of his usual mismatched dishes. What's all this? I asked, slightly overwhelmed. Stefan emerged from the kitchen carrying 2 plates of pasta that smelled divine. I wanted to do something special, he said simply, setting the plates down. We've been so focused on work and recovery that we haven't really celebrated us. This is me attempting romance, which admittedly isn't my strong suit. I laughed, touched by the effort. You're doing great so far. Dinner was delicious. Apparently Stefan had hidden culinary talents, and our conversation flowed easily, ranging from funny client stories to my upcoming final exams. But as we finished dessert, Stefan's nervous energy returned. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the city's glittering lights. There's something I need to show you, he said, his back still to me. Come here. I joined him at the window, confused but intrigued. Stefan pointed toward the wall to our right, where several paintings hung. I'd noticed them before but never examined them closely. I painted these over the years, he explained. Therapy, basically. When the nightmares got bad, my counselor suggested finding a creative outlet. We moved closer, and I studied each piece carefully. They were mostly abstract swirls of dark colors, gradually giving way to lighter shades, chaotic brushstrokes calming into gentler patterns. Then I reached the last painting, and my breath caught. It was recent, the paint still slightly tacky. The canvas depicted 2 figures intertwined, their forms suggested rather than detailed, surrounded by warm golden light that pushed back surrounding shadows. This one is us, Stefan said softly. How you've made me feel, like there's light worth moving toward after years of darkness. Tears pricked my eyes. Stefan, it's beautiful. He turned to face me fully, taking both my hands in his. Daniel, these past few months with you have been the best of my life. You've seen the worst parts of me, my past, my trauma, my inability to trust, and you stayed anyway. You've helped me build something I'm proud of, supported me through panic attacks and nightmares, and never once made me feel broken beyond repair. My heart hammered against my ribs, sensing something momentous coming. I know we haven't been together that long, Stefan continued, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. And I know we're both still figuring things out. You're finishing school, I'm aiming a business. We're both healing in our own ways. But I also know, with absolute certainty, that I want a future with you. A real one. He released one of my hands to pull something from his pocket, a simple silver band with subtle engraving. This isn't an engagement ring, he clarified quickly. Not yet anyway. Think of it as a promise ring, a promise that when we're both ready, when you've graduated, when my business is stable, when the timing feels right, I want to ask you properly. I want to build a life with you, Daniel. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want everything. I stared at the ring, then at Stefan, completely overwhelmed. You want to marry me? My voice came out barely a whisper. Eventually, yes, Stefan said, searching my face anxiously. If you'll have me, I know I come with baggage. Nightmares, emotional walls I'm still working to dismantle. A past that will always be part of who I am. But I'm also offering you complete honesty, absolute loyalty, and love that's been growing since the moment you smiled at me like I mattered. Joy burst through my chest, bright and overwhelming. Yes, I said, laughing through tears. Yes, to the promise. Yes, to the future. Yes, to all of it. When the time comes, my answer will be yes. Stefan's face transformed, relief and happiness erasing the anxiety. He slipped the ring onto my right hand, the opposite of traditional, deliberately different, and then pulled me into a kiss that felt like sealing a vow. We stood there in the candlelight holding each other as the city sparkled below, and everything that had seemed impossible months ago suddenly felt inevitable. I have something to tell you too, I said when we finally broke apart. I applied for a graduate program in business management. Specifically, I want to learn about small business operations and growth strategies. I had accepted yesterday. Stefan's eyes widened. Daniel, that's amazing. Why didn't you say something sooner? Because I wanted to wait until I was sure. I admitted. The program partners with local businesses for practical experience, and I was hoping, maybe your company could be my focus? I want to help you grow this thing into something bigger. We could be partners in every sense. Partners, Stefan repeated, testing the word. I liked the sound of that. He pulled me close again, resting his chin on top of my head. You know, when I carried you out of Henrik's party that night, I had no idea it would lead here. I just knew I couldn't stand watching you hurt. Best, worst night of my life, I said with a soft laugh. I got humiliated, and found you. Not a bad trade-off. I'd carry you through 1,000 disasters if it meant ending up here. Stefan murmured against my hair. We eventually moved to the couch, where Stefan showed me his business expansion plans. Ideas for hiring more staff, opening a second office, developing specialized training programs for corporate clients. I offered suggestions, made notes, and felt a deep sense of rightness settle over me. This was where I belonged, building something meaningful alongside someone I loved, creating a future we'd designed together. As the night deepened and candles burned low, I looked at the ring on my finger, a tangible promise of tomorrow. Henrik's party felt like a lifetime ago, that humiliation just a distant memory overshadowed by everything that came after. I'd gone searching for love in all the wrong places, chasing someone who could never see me. But sometimes the universe has better plans than the ones we make. Sometimes you have to fall literally and figuratively before the right person can catch you. And Stefan? He'd been catching me ever since.